Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from Trust TV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. My name is Suleiman. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing the APC presidential race, well, with one of those in the race, Malan Ademugarba II. So maybe we go straight into it. The current president, President Muhammadu Buhari, has a larger-than-life stature, at least within the party. It's one of the major people that form the party. He emerged the first presidential candidate of the party, the first president of the APC to win 2 elections back to back, and also widely popular among at least some sections of the APC voters or APC faithfuls. So how you and your colleagues that are aspiring, how are you looking to replace such a person in the APC?
I think, thank you for having me, Dr. Suleiman. I think this is constitutional.
Okay.
No matter how large, how established a president is in a country, thank God to democracy, you only have a period of 4 years, an additional 4 years. And that it's clear that by May 29, 2023, Nigeria is going to have a new president. Whether that new president is going to assume the larger-than-life kind of personality or not, that's left to be seen. But we hope, as Nigerians do, that that president should be Ademugarba.
Thank you. But it will be interesting to if that president becomes Ademugarba. But one of the issues we Nigerians are looking at is the issue of preparation for office across the board, across the major political parties, across the smaller political parties, but also across the offices as well, presidential, governorship, senatorial, and so on. There's this general argument that our presidents particularly have not always been prepared for office. So it goes without saying, are you prepared to be president of Nigeria?
100%. I think if there is any university and PhD studies, I think mine will have to be on Nigeria. Because I dedicated my life from 2003, and those students that were with me in the university then, they knew that I was talking about wanting to be the president in 2019, as at that moment in 2003. In fact, it even cost me my university education because I was so much into it, to the point whereby I studied extensively about how to build a country, like in our peculiarities, Nigeria. And over the period of 17 years, I was able to study critically about 146 different countries. From these 146 different countries, you will see the rise of other countries over time and the fall of others. And what are the policy choices that make those other ones that stayed afloat as have adopted, and what are the wrong policy choices that the ones that have failed have adopted, and how can we avoid those wrong policy choices and apply the right policy choices?
You're telling me that in the last 20 years, since 2003, 19 years to date,
you
have actually been training yourself and preparing to become president of Nigeria?
That's very
Tell
very
Nigerians
correct.
more.
Yes, you see, the thing is, I also, in the course of this preparation, I had a course to study the history of this country from 11th century. Long time ago, since when we were Sudan land, down to the point when we are part of Ghana Empire, to Mali Empire, to Songhai, down to the coming of the Moors, to scatter Songhai, and then we built the Sultanate of Namfodio, and all the major kingdoms we have, Kororofa, Daura, Oyonle, Kalabari, and all these kind of things. And I came to understand that as we come into the 20th century, precisely 1901, when Lord Lugard assumed the responsibility, there is a particular strategic objective that they want to achieve, and that strategic objective is not so much about power, but to organize the country for extraction of economic resources as much as possible. It means that the biggest value that the country has have to do with the economy. But as we run down towards the independence, when we have the crisis in Suez in 1956 that forced the Americans to ask all the colonial powers to vacate Africa, we succeeded too in getting our independence. That's why you see so many African countries got independent around that period of 1960. So when we got our own, the independence now banked on the political power, not economic power. Most of the actors as at then, the three major regional actors were all aiming for political control as opposed to economic production. And immediately we took over, we began to decentralize, because at the point when we got independent, we are 3 regions, politically polarized units. And from there, that did not go well to the point whereby all our founding fathers were murdered, and we now had a long war, about 3 years war, Biafra. From there, we now shift into a little bit of 70s stability. Then in the 80s, we now get into crisis again. Maitasine, then Kafanchan crisis. In the 90s, we now began to have a little bit of Zangwan Kataf crisis again, religious crisis, especially in the north. Then we have Niger Delta militancy. When we come to 1999, OPC picked up, in the west, and you have Zaki BM, you have OD. That's how we keep navigating around crisis and killing till we got to Boko Haram, militancy again, banditry now, and kidnapping that is ravaging the West. So when you look at this, there's something that is talking about the foundational establishment of Nigeria. Over time, Nigeria has paid so much attention to politics as opposed to the economics. Meanwhile, what's supposed to be the main uniting factor within the country is supposed to be the economic integration as opposed to the political integration. And that is why my coming to aspire for the office of the presidency is banking or bringing a vision that will replace experience. That experience is politicization experience that we have had over time by replacing it with the vision that will see to abolishing these geopolitical zones to transforming it into geoeconomic zones and expanding it to 9 geoeconomic zones, whereby we pay serious attention to the economic of production. We accept each other for who we are, an Igbo man for Igbo man, Hausa for Hausa, Fulani for Fulani, Yoruba for Yoruba, Nupe for all the tribes, accepting them for who they are based on their sincere identities by paying attention to economic link that seems to bridge the gap between one another. And that is exactly the vision that we are bringing forth to the fore. If you look at Nigeria today, 99% of all the operations that we operate in the area of insecurity that we are facing today has to do with the politics of the country. So when we articulate all those things, we came up with 2 agendas that we believe can fix Nigeria. And these 2 agendas are going to be collapsed into a council. We have Council for Security and Political Affairs.
I will be taking you up on these issues later on, particularly on the economy, and then certainly on the security. What are you going to do different? But we'll come to that. First of all, let's talk about the wider politics of how we are going to get there.
That's very correct.
In the first place, So the general trend among most people is vying for presidency. Either is to go for other political parties, when young people, maybe smaller political parties or the alternative political, but you are a presidential aspirant in the APC, for how long have you been an APC member, and how can you measure your chances against other people you are contesting, against people like Shiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, and so on and so forth?
Yes, I have been in APC since 2015, 2014, 2015. That's how I joined APC. And why I major into the bigger political platforms has to do with our history, again. Because I am those kind of persons that believe in historical antecedents of everything. And if you check Nigeria's history from the independence, now we used to operate a 2-party system. From the time of our founding fathers to the Second Republic of Shehu Shagari to the Third Republic of IBB, SDP, NRC, to now we have PDP, AMPP, then APP, AMPP, then PDP, APC. So this is the structure that we have. So why do we have to go out to build something when we can really concentrate forces within this major political platform while we have holding an experience that other people can learn over time to build capacity? We also reform the system. So that's why I belong to APC. And what are my chances despite the bigger gladiators in the game? My simple chances is that I know when you are in a political party, your biggest agenda is to win political power. Absolutely. If you don't have political power, you are nothing. Absolutely. We have seen how PDP went into disarray simply because of lack of political power. And APC have a better chance of winning the 2023 election by presenting my candidacy. One, I appeal to the demography that is feeling excluded from the system, the younger demography. Okay. Two, I'm coming with a vision, not leveraging of the experiences of the past that I've felt over time. Every time we apply experience in this country, we just have a quagmire. And there is evidently clear that the system is designed in such a way that however you want to come to it inside it, it will collapse you. So you have to come from outside the system with a new program that will re-engineer the system and transform it for a new direction, especially in this 21st century model. And that's the program we built over time. So with this, the party have a very good manifesto to sell to Nigerians. The party also have a younger demography, an energetic, visionary person that when they place in front of Nigerian populace, they are going to get a win.
Thank you.
So that's
some people are saying that you're invoking your youth.
Yes.
You're invoking a different kind of experience, separate from what we are used to having. Because if experience gets us where, then of what value is it? If all the experience in the world has brought Nigeria to what it is, then of what value it is. So I can agree with that. But people have said that the young people, when they come into politics, when they're being given opportunities, if they don't prove to be wars, then those they seek to succeed, they tend not to be better. People give examples of many, including your aspirant Governor Yaya Bello of Kogi State. People give examples that youth, they haven't really done anything extraordinary when they have gotten chances. So how are you going to convince first your party members and maybe later on, or let me say hopefully later on, other Nigerians that you're going to be different?
It is clear. If you look at the commitment over these 17, 19 years that I have invested, it means there is deliberate effort to do the right thing. Okay. And that is why each and every policy points that we adopted are based on practicable, workable framework. It's not something that is cast in stone. So exuberance is out of it. And again, if you look at me as a personality now deeply, I started my life 4 years old Almajiri boy, like a typical northern boy on the street. Got circumcised at the age of 7, started my primary school at the age of 8, you know, and from there is practically no street trade that I didn't do. We sold Raptor, we sold Granite, we sold Akara, you know, in my house because I grew up in a very, very humble background. And that is how Johnny took me to life. I finished public primary school. I went to public secondary school. I went to public state university in Kano. And when at the middle, it was truncated. I shifted back into technology, learned IT, went to Lagos, knowing nobody in Lagos. And from there, I started working in smaller organizations. I think my first salary was 10,000 naira. I committed so much to the point where by the following month, they increased it to 30,000, then to 45,000. Then I got another job somewhere that is even paying me 100,000. I rose to about 214,000 before coming back and setting up my business.
Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we are discussing the exorbitant cost of nomination forms of various parties, particularly for the primary elections. And with me, two Nigerians who, well, one of them at least is in politics, and the other is very close to it. So, Mr. Jide, let me start with you. Or actually, maybe I should be starting with the politician.
Politics, according to you.
Thank you. So,
well, he's more political than me.
How did it feel, even as an observer, you know, as a Nigerian citizen, as also a commentator, someone who has the job of, you know, speaking about issues that matter to our democracy, matter to our governance systems, matter to a lot of Nigerians. How did you feel just hearing about these costs in the past 2 months or so?
Thank you, Sulaiman.
Yeah.
I will be very dispassionate about this. And in fact, my column in The Punch, which is coming out tomorrow, dealt exhaustively with this issue. And this is not the first media interview I'm granting. Yesterday, I spoke to Radio Nigeria, and I've been on a couple of other, including Premium Times. Now, I'm not a politician. I'm not a card-carrying member of any political parties. But as a student of politics, I will tell you that we need not be too emotive about this issue.
Okay.
I have followed through. And if Nigeria has any campaign finance expert in this country, I'm one of them. Because since 2007, I've followed through and tracked campaign finance. One thing I want us to bear is the motive. Why do they charge such astronomical fees? I could have joined the crowd and said, no, this is unacceptable. This is, in fact, a colleague in Punch in today's Punch actually wrote about that nomination fee is illegal. It's not. It's not. If you look at, let me say this, in 2018, there was a clause inserted by the National Assembly aimed at pegging the nomination fee. In that bill, the highest was put at 10 million naira for presidential nomination. But in the 2022 electoral, they decided not to toy with it because it's an internal issue of a political party. But let me give you motive.
Yes.
In 2014, John Odige Oyegun was the chairman of APC. And when the party charged 27.5 million, the pressman asked him, why are you charging this cutthroat? Because then it's a huge sum of money. In fact,
and they were in opposition at the time.
Yes, they were in opposition. Mark, that's the funny thing. They were in opposition, but the nomination fee of APC was higher than that of PDP, even in 2014.
Yes.
And Odige Oyegun's response was very instructive. He said, we set that amount in order to separate the boys from the men.
Okay.
Which means it's a deliberate ploy to weed out any unserious contender. Because if you make it cheap, there are in politics we say there are contenders and there are pretenders. Yeah. There will be more pretenders if you make it cheap or free. And I drew an illustration. In 2019, how many presidential candidates do we have? 74. How many, when you look at the votes, and it's available online, only 2 candidates has over 95% of the vote. Yeah. The others are just also run. So, but the point is, if you make it cheap, and that is the import of what Odige Oyegun said in 2014, that they will have a huge challenge managing the conduct of the primaries because of the delegate. You recall that the president, then an aspirant, said he had to go and borrow money from his bank in order to be able to pay the nomination fee. But that is one. The second point I need to make.
Before you make the second point, let me bring Marlon Sergio, because the argument that you made, the first argument that you made, that it helps to separate, to weed out the pretenders from the contenders, is the standard argument that the political parties themselves make. And, you know, so, but Malam, how do you see that argument? To what extent does it stand in the context of Nigeria?
No, I think, let me borrow a word from my brother, Mahmoud Jega. Okay. We're paying a huge price for, for our indiscipline. Huge price in maintaining our democracy because of our indiscipline. we're really, really, really seriously indisciplined, and that's why the cost of our democracy is very high. You don't look at it just from the political parties. How much is INEC going to spend for an election? 305 billion for just one election. You know, how much are the candidates already spending trying to woo delegates? It's far, far, far above, over and above this thing that we're talking about. So generally speaking, remember I told you here that for as long as we make our politics transactional, we should not cry about the amount of money we are spending. Our politics is not issue-based, it's transactional. Negotiate and transact and get whatever. I had the opportunity of questioning, leadership of APC on this huge amount of money. A lot of them, would have rather the money was less than this. But like he said, there is a motive for everything. And the explanation they gave, to a large extent, may not sit well with people who are not in politics, but with them, it sat very well. And I will tell you that if they don't charge some serious amount of money to use in running the process, they may have to surrender the administration of the process to either the president, the governors, or some godfathers. Okay. And that they're trying to avoid. That they want the party to independently administer the process from beginning to the end. And don't forget, the process will involve congresses at different levels. It will involve screening of candidates, appeal committees. All of these things consume a huge administrative cost. The convention itself, if the last convention is anything to go by, the last convention was very tough for the party because they expected governors to make monies available. The monies were not made as desired. The states, for example, states where APC had no governors, it was quite difficult for them to even ferry their delegates to this place. But for a nomination process, you do not leave this thing at the mercy of either individuals or candidates or aspirants to shoulder.
Let's call them pretenders.
The party wants to own up to the entire process. Okay. So this could be, that was what leadership of the party, some of the leadership of the party, these were the arguments that were advanced, in addition to what my brother said, separating pretenders from contenders and things. But the truth about it is that the parties need to have sufficient funds to process the entire activities relating to nominations.
Thank you.
Without having to go the recourse to go to any individual.
Thank you. We will come back to what the party needs to do, in order to reduce much later in the program. But for now, maybe let's explore deeper this very argument that the APC and all the other political parties have put forward. Because frankly speaking, even the 40 million of PDP is quite high for many Nigerians in a country where minimum wage is still 30,000 naira. But the argument that you want to weed the boys, from the men, from the pretenders, from the contenders, and that has two problems. One, you are arguing that money is the only way or the best way that you can do that. Should it be in a democracy? That's one. Secondly, you are saying that this is how it has always been done everywhere in the world, that money, because everywhere in the world there are pretenders and there are contenders as well. And there are many mechanisms for choosing between those who are pretenders and those who are what do you call them? Contenders. So if you say in our own case, money is the only way, then what does that mean? Are there not other ways of doing that?
Okay, so that's just one. That's just one. The other point, which is a rider to what Honorable said, is that how many parties, including dominant parties, have enough resources to prosecute their daily administration, APC claimed to have 40 million registered members. Let the auditor or the financial secretary or the treasurer come out with how many of those 40 million have paid their dues up to date. It will be scandalous. People don't pay dues. If they pay dues, you see, it's about taxation. If you pay tax, you demand for good governance. If you pay membership due, and I said in one of my interviews, 12,000, let's charge 1,000 naira per month for 12,000 a year. Look at, multiply that by 40 million registered. We are talking of 480 billion naira that will accrue to APC in 1 year if all members pay. But they just don't pay. They just don't pay because they are
maybe the members don't exist. Maybe they don't have 40 million.
Maybe. Okay. That's a possibility. But beyond that is also that the party is too detached from its members. There is, you know, when the argument, Honorable, you are here, when the argument was made about direct primaries, the proponent of direct primaries said, return party to the members.
Yes.
Let them have a say in determining who are the party leaders at every stage, including the nominees or the flag bearers of the party. That direct primary will have given a sense of belonging to party members. And I advance an argument that, for instance, if APC were to do direct primary, and said for you to be qualified to vote in this direct primary, we want to see your financial records to the party. As a precondition for you to cast your ballot for any of the aspirants. You will see how much the party will make. Did you know that Memala Buni said on March 26 that they just bought that Blantyre office, that it was his CECPC that was able to procure that place for the party. Renovation is going on there now. This cost a lot. So if, assuming without considering that Wadata Plaza also belongs to PDP, I know PDP,
and it doesn't.
PDP as a secretariat has been building for almost 20 years.
Yes.
Since about 2007.
Yes.
They've not, you went there to inspect the state of the project. It's still in a maybe 50%, 60%. What I'm saying invariably is this. Apart from, which is a valid argument, apart from the money they need to conduct the primaries and then setting up appeal committees that will go and do this and that, printing ballot boxes and procurement and all of that. Apart from that, election comes every 4 years. It is this season that the party can earn enough resources to run its activity in the non-election years. And that is why there used to be a political finance handbook and manual from INEC. I don't know in recent past whether they still have. In a section of that political finance manual and handbook, there's a section that talks about legitimate ways by which parties can raise money. And nomination fee is one of them.
Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're talking about whether or not political officers, political appointees of various executive arms of the government, first at the federal government, but also at the state level, whether they will have to resign, whether the Electoral Act that requires them to resign, whether the sections in the Electoral Act that requires them to resign is going to stand or not, what implications this will have for some of them as we go into the election season proper. Stay with us. So, Mr. Olabi, let me begin with you as our chief legal officer in this studio right now. There is a tussle in that act. You know, the Electoral Act requires that people should resign, you know, if they are going to participate in elections as candidates or even as voters. And now both parties have met their their primaries calendar is now clear. We now know that the PDP and the APC are going to have their primary elections at the end of May, and for governorship elections even earlier. What does this calendar mean for that requirement of the Electoral Act?
Well, you call it Tozu. I don't see it as Tozu.
Okay.
Even though you can't rule out that, even though the mindset of the legislators that came up with that provision of Electoral Act, Section 84, sub 12, you can't rule out the fact that one way or the other there could be personal interest.
Okay.
That is that underscore the reasoning
The personal interest of whom?
of legislators.
Okay.
Let me tell you the way it happens. You know what happened here is this. When if you're a governor of a state and you are seeking a re-election, and then another person is seeking a re-election and that's under the same political party, allowing your, what do you call it, political appointees, by these two political parties have in their constitution that political appointees are eligible to vote at their convention and congresses.
Yes.
So what does that simply say? It means that you are not having a level playing field for all aspirants in any election, because those you appoint will definitely is like somebody who has the pipe. It will be the one to dictate the tone. So that's what happens. So largely, this affects aspirations of some of our lawmakers to become governors of their states. And that is why they came up with this idea. But I want us to go beyond the personal interest of, individual interest of the legislators and look at the merit of that provision. That provision is, to me, it's very, very, very necessary.
Okay.
Necessary in the sense that if you are popular and your people and you are acceptable to the people, or what you promise the people that you are going to do if you are elected is believed by the people, you will be so elected. But a situation whereby the system skewed the electoral process to your favor and then leaves the people with no choice than to have only you to contend with. You don't have, that's not democracy. But going proper to your question, I said there's no Tozu.
Okay.
Because I think the civil society, the members of the bar, and educated Nigerians celebrate that provisions of the law, that Section 84. Those who are contesting that provision are those that the provision work against, and they are minority. Okay, now what is the basis for their complaint? The basis for their complaint is you find the basis under Section 66, 107, 137, 182 of the Constitution. What are they saying? That the Constitution is supreme is no doubt. There's no doubt about that. The Constitution is supreme, and whatever law the legislature makes that is in conflict with the provisions of our law, it's going to be null and void to the level of that, to the level of the inconsistency of that provision of the law. So those who hold that view are very correct. But the question that people are not asking is that what we have at hand now, does it apply to violation of the Nigerian Constitution? From my own angle, the answer is no.
But that's why we were speaking of a Tozu earlier, because as Mr. Dari said, what we have at hand now. Some people will say what we have at hand now is that section of the electoral law, in fact, stands abrogated, stands deleted, that's what we have at hand now, rather than what was put there by the National Assembly at the time the law was being passed and assented to by the president. That what we have at hand now is that section of the law does not exist. It's null and void, you know. But so how does that constrain or, you know, affect the coming primaries now that we have a calendar?
Yeah, okay. In the sense that the law is not being viewed as being in existence based on the decision of the courts. That is the legal paradigm that is looking at it. But if you go by the general principles of fairness and level playing field, which he mentioned earlier, it is standard. The Electoral Act that we are just talking about, and even the CAMA, the Corporate Affairs Commission and Allied Matters Act, CAMA, the recent amendment 2020, there is still provision for private business owners, company managers, to divest their interest in whatever businesses they are doing while seeking political office.
Very interesting.
So that is to prevent conflict of interest or distraction to that office holder while serving the public. So that doesn't need the Electoral Act for you to do the needful, that you need to divest from whatever you are doing. So generally, even in the United States, states like Florida, Arizona, Texas, Hawaii, up to 5 states. In fact, many states are also admitting this provision of resign to run, which is that you should not have any advantage because
against
you
other candidates in the same race,
yes,
or other aspirants in the same race.
Yeah, so in that context, it is right to say this is a tussle. And in that tussle, it is only fair that parties come on equal footing so that the electorate will have a clearer vision of what they are voting or casting their vote for. So I do not think that what the court has decided, yeah, it's still pending, is now on appeal, but that does not in any way dismiss the normative qualities that people should do the needful.
Thank you. But Mr. Diarra, this issue has several angles. There is the moral aspect of it, which both of you have stressed, the legal aspect of it, but also the politics of it, you know. We'll look at the different aspect subsequently. But the judicial aspect of it, is it not possible for the appeal court to expedite action on this hearing, this case, just so that it doesn't throw the country into confusion? Isn't it possible a judge is not influenced by the political environment, not in their decisions on questions of law, but not in their decisions on the questions of law, but on how their decisions can affect the, you know, can they intervene quickly so that this issue is settled and then we move on?
You asked me a very, very emotional question.
Okay.
You know why I call it emotional?
Yes.
It is emotional because you delve into my constituency. You're asking questions on topics that bleeds our hearts. Some of us that feel that things are not being done the right way in Nigeria. It is possible for the judiciary to do the needful within the time that the general populace expects the judiciary to act. But because we are Nigerians in court, when delaying decisions on that matter is normal with us, for a reason best known to the political attacks. But if you want me to answer your question straight away, it is possible. But because we're Nigerians, well, delay can happen. And it's quite unfortunate. That's why.
So what could be the causes of these delays?
Yeah, well, you see, let me even look at it from another angle. I don't even expect in the first place that case will be taken to court. Do you know why? Because as recently as 2018, when there was a contest between a political party, primary election between the former governor of Ekiti State, his name is Engineer Shegwoni, and the present governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kaode Fayemi. There was primary election between them in 2018 under APC, the same political umbrella. And Dr. Kaode Fayemi was declared the winner of that primary election. And Shegwoni went to court, Engineer Shegwoni went to court to contest his emergence on the ground that he is a public officer. He ought to have resigned by provision of Section 66 of Nigerian Constitution. He ought to have resigned 30 days to the primaries. But he sat as a sitting minister. He was a sitting minister, and he had that primaries conducted. You know what the Court of Appeal said? That political appointees are not captured under Section 318 of the Constitution. So why is anybody going to court about this? Do you get the point I'm making now? It as recently as 2018. The Supreme Court said, the Court of Appeal said, as at the time he contested that election, yes, he's a political appointee, but he does not fall within the contemplation of Section 318 of the Constitution. The two categories of public officials are to be treated differently.
Very well.
So the first one concerns the civil servants or public, and this new electoral act is in particular relating to the political appointees.
The Constitution, Section 66, 107, 137, 182 of the Constitution, and even 318 of the Constitution are talking about public officers. Why Electoral Act, Section 84, sub 12 of Electoral Act, is talking about political appointees. These are two different people under the law.
Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing the APC presidential primary race. And today we're discussing that of former governor of Lagos State Senate and former senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is one of the leading candidates of the All Progressive Congress. And with me is one of the insiders in his campaign, also a former senator of the Federal Republic, Senator Ade. You're much welcome once again, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Yeah. So far, by the last count, you have about 10 candidates in this election. In your party alone, you have the former governor, the national leader of the APC, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu Ahmed himself, the vice president. You have the governor of Ebonyi State, Dev Umahi, another governor of Kogi State, and many candidates. What makes you think that your campaign and that of the governor of Lagos State, what makes it special among the other campaigns in the country? Within the party?
First of all, we will not know the number of those who are actually seriously contesting for the presidency under the banner of the APC until they have purchased the forms.
Okay.
People at the present moment, people are merely talking about what their intentions are. But we want to see intention become reality when you actually take that step to purchase the form. Then I will regard you as a real aspirant under the banner of the APC until you have purchased the form.
As Governor Tinubu, has he purchased the form?
Atiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Yes.
He has not purchased the form because the forms will be on sale from tomorrow.
Okay.
If it had been on sale prior to
Saturday.
this time, he would have purchased the form. But I want to assure you that if there is anything I'm sure about, it is the fact that he will surely purchase the form by the grace of Almighty God. So it's going to be contesting. But be that as it may, it towers above the others who are in this race. And I say it with all sense of responsibility. First and foremost, it's more experienced than all of them who have come out in politics. It's more experienced than them. He was elected a senator as far back as 1992. He served under that. He served then in the Third Republic. When the military annulled the presidential election of 1993 and returned Nigeria to military dictatorship, he was in the forefront of the campaign for demilitarization, for a return to democracy. He became a founding member of NADECO. He fought for the annulment of the June 1993 election, and this took him into exile. He only returned in 1998 with the advent of the Abdulsalami Abubakar administration that opened the space again for democratic practice. He came back and he won the election to become the governor of Lagos State. Like we said, the most cosmopolitan state in Nigeria, the most commercial state in Nigeria, home to all Nigerians. He became the governor of that state and he ruled for 8 years. He was among the 6 elected governors of the AD then. The other 5 were defeated in elections in 2003. He was the only surviving one. And that must be a reason for that. He survived. Not only did he survive, he managed in that vantage position to recover most of the lost ground back to the progressive fold. So much so that today in the Southwest, the APC is controlling 5 states, while the PDP has only 1 state.
Interesting.
So you have to give him that is on the level of his democratic credentials, the level of his at the level of his political sagacity. You can see that this is a real thoroughbred politician, highly experienced, who has fought for democracy and who continues to fight for democracy. A dogged fighter, a man who does not shy away from challenges. So on that arena alone, it towers above them. But when you even come to the issue of governance, which is crucial to what most Nigerians will be expecting in the next president.
Certainly.
His record as governor of Lagos State is phenomenal.
Okay.
First and foremost, I always say one thing: without peace, without unity, you cannot have development. You talk of development in an atmosphere of peace, a rancor-free society, a society in which everybody have decided to come together, to work together, to lift the society up. Without peace and unity, you cannot have development. And I want to say that Bola Ahmed Tinubu had a record of presiding over a state where you hardly had intercommunal clashes, despite the fact that Lagos State is home
but
to...
there were OPC and all this kind of crisis, in Lagos when he was governor at the time.
Thank you, I'm coming to this issue.
Okay.
Despite the fact that you have every hamlet represented in Lagos, every hamlet of this country, even Africa, represented in Lagos. And that's why we have a lot of what I would call nationality groups fighting for their own different ethnic nationalities, making Lagos the center of their operations. He was still able to douse the tension, reduce tension to the barest minimum, curtail the conflicts, ameliorate some of the forces that were trying to put the nation apart, which find Lagos at the epicenter of their struggle. So he was able to manage things to that level that Lagos State did not witness, nothing got out of hand in Lagos State for the 8 years, particularly at the early stages of this new democratic dispensation, when passions were so high, tension was so much, people were very angry with what the military had done. If you did not have a person like Bola Tinubu at the helm of affairs, things could have gotten out of hand.
Interesting.
But he was able to dial the tension. He was able to manage things, and he brought virtually people from all over the country to represented in his government.
But some people would say that this is a man who last held public office in 2007. That's almost 15 years ago. You know, that, okay, maybe he's no longer in touch with the realities of governance or even the realities of challenges in Nigerian society today. You know, so, or some people would say maybe he's behind the times.
I will not agree with them. What of a person? What of those who may be contesting for president now who have never even held any office?
Interesting.
At all, who have no experience at all. Don't forget that we have had such in the world. President Trump was elected without even any single experience in governance, in politics. And it's not the only one. We have so many examples all over the place. So the experience that he had as a governor, whether it is 15 years ago or whatever, still there for him is an experience. Whatever experience you garner while you are in the university is still with you today.
Absolutely.
And whatever the places where you have worked, whether before you came to this organization, the experience you gathered in those places are still with you. So I do not agree with that. He was able to run a very efficient government. And most of the people who serve in that government continue to serve in various places in Nigeria today as ministers, those who are his commissioners, chief of staff, and federal ministers today. One is the vice president, and they are in various areas, which means, number one, what does that tell you? It tells you that this is a man who is able to recognize talent, to plug them out, to use them, to develop them, and to lift them up to go to pursue higher endeavors. So that is a man who recognizes talent. And Nigeria is a country that is abundant in terms of talent. In all the nooks and crannies of Nigeria, no area of Nigeria has shortage of talents. The only problem we have is we are not able to recognize them. We're not able to use them effectively. We're not able to create the enabling environment that could make them optimize their God-given talents. So this is a man that has proven to everyone that he is able to recognize talent from anywhere in the country and to be able to use them effectively for the development of society. So that is one strong point for him. In the present government we have now, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, those who pass through his school of politics, who pass through his school of governance, are doing extremely well in this government. And they are everywhere in all fields of human endeavor. Some have even returned to the private sector where they are excelling. So that is one factor that is going on for him. But the ability to bring people together. You know, the greatest challenge for this country today, as far as I'm concerned, is the challenge of insecurity and disunity. The country is broken. There is mistrust everywhere.
Absolutely.
There is total lack of unity. Our people are divided. We need somebody to bring everybody together. And once you bring everybody together, we need somebody to make sure that they live peacefully together. Put an end to banditry, put an end to terrorism, put an end to kidnapping and all these things. And let Nigeria, again, witness peace. Let people be able to sleep with their two eyes closed in their homes. Let them be able to travel without any fear of being kidnapped or being attacked on the way. Let people be able to pursue their business endeavors without any fear of molestation or attack from anywhere. So that is the kind of environment that Nigeria needs now. And the man that I believe, among all these people I mentioned, who have experience in doing these things, is actually Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
But some will say, what about the vice president who has worked with the president in the last 7 years? You know, some would say even people like the CBN governor, who is still holding on to his CBN position, you know, they want to also come. They've not stated, but we're in Nigeria and we know how politics works. And then others, governors who have actually been in held states up till maybe last week, this week, you know, so they are more in tune with current realities. Are they more, how do they fare? How would you say that Asiwaju fares in relation to these people?
Oh yes, some of these people you have mentioned, you have mentioned the technocrat who is still in government right now. Still in government. I don't know whether it will come out to contest. His record can only be judged by those who are in the dark sector. but it is before the Nigerian public. Those people are not tested in the arena of politics.
What about the vice
They
president?
have not been tested in the arena of politics.
Okay.
To run an organization like that, where there is order, everybody obeys you, you come to the office, yes sir, yes sir. It's different from when you find yourself in the hot soup of politics. That is a completely different experience. This time you are managing all sorts of things. So that is a different thing I don't want to even compare at that level. The vice president, yes, he has had experience in the last 7 years, but I'm not here to talk about the vice president.
Okay.
I'm here to talk about my own candidate. That will be other people who will talk about the vice president's experience.
Where are the two campaigns not engaging each other frontally in a campaign? Where are the two campaigns skirting and dodging from engaging each other? It's a political environment.
When you are running for...
the deed has already been done.
Yeah. Well, there is no... I won't say that we are not engaging ourselves frontally. Everybody is pursuing his own campaign. The vice president is pursuing his own campaign. We are pursuing our own campaign. Of course, in the course of doing that, there will be occasions where you will need to try to upstage each other or things like that. But in any case, this is the way we do our own politics in Nigeria until the primaries are over, or, you know, the primary season this time is very short. Yes. Extremely short. So it has not really enabled us to really amplify our positions like that. But the vice president has the right to go and contest. Just as Ashwaju has the right to go and contest. Ashwaju had been in the race before him. He knew very well that Ashwaju had said it openly that he was going to run for president. Some people have questioned the morality of his coming out, given the relationship between the two of them. But that's not why I'm here. Okay. That's another matter entirely. Certainly. Entirely. But I am very sure that Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has better experience than all of these people in the arena of politics. Because when you are even a second fiddle to somebody, you are not the man in charge. You can just continue to follow. You are not the one actually bringing everybody together, doing all the work. You can be given tasks to do, but the man that is really in charge is a completely different thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, sure. So Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in the politics of Nigeria is very complex. Very few people understand it. Very, very complex politics. Because we are a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society, the diversity is much.